Henry had never thought he'd find himself back in the dating world at 72. After his beloved wife, Margaret, passed away 5 years earlier, he had settled into a quiet life of gardening, reading, and the occasional lunch with old friends. But loneliness, subtle and persistent, had begun creeping in. He missed having someone to share stories with, someone to laugh with over small absurdities of life, someone to hold his hand on chilly evenings. After much hesitation, he decided it was time to step back into the world, to find companionship, and perhaps, love. The first day he joined an online dating platform, he felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. "Can someone really love me at this age?" he whispered to himself as he set up his profile. His photo was a candid one, taken by his grandson last summer in the garden, where he was trimming roses and smiling naturally. Henry wasn't looking for anything complicated, he simply wanted warmth and kindness. Almost immediately, he started receiving messages. At first, it was flattering. Women complimented his appearance, his wit, even his love of classical music. But as days went by, patterns began emerging. Some messages made him feel uneasy, even though the words seemed harmless. The first encounter that set off alarm bells was with a woman named Gloria. She was in her early 60s, bubbly, and exuded charm in her texts. Henry felt flattered by her attention, but soon noticed that every conversation subtly drifted toward money. She asked about his pension, his investments, and even hinted at wanting to travel the world at his expense. Every time he tried to steer the conversation toward hobbies, books, or music, she skillfully redirected it back to wealth and lifestyle. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but Henry sensed the undertone. After a few weeks, he realized this was the gold-digging type he had heard about from friends. Gloria was never really interested in him, only in what he could provide. The discovery hurt more than he expected, leaving him wary, yet wiser. Then there was Lillian. She seemed everything Henry had hoped for initially: charming, witty, and elegant. Their first meeting at a small cafe had gone smoothly, filled with laughter and shared memories of past adventures. But as the days passed, Lillian's mood swings became evident. One moment she would be cheerful and affectionate, the next she would explode over minor misunderstandings. A misplaced word, a delayed message, even a casual comment about the weather could trigger an emotional storm. Henry found himself walking on eggshells, trying to predict her reactions. It was exhausting, draining, and entirely contrary to the peaceful companionship he had envisioned. He realized that some people thrived on drama, and Lillian, with her constant need for validation and conflict, was one of them. The charm that had initially drawn him in began to feel like a trap, and he quietly ended the relationship, grateful for the lesson but saddened by the wasted emotional energy. Next came Margaret's cousin, Beatrice, who seemed sensible at first. She was organized, polite, and always had a plan. But soon, Henry noticed a controlling streak. Every small detail, what he ate, when he took his walks, how he managed his finances, was scrutinized and commented upon. Beatrice offered advice under the guise of care, but it often felt like criticism. She insisted on making decisions on his behalf, arguing that at his age, he needed guidance. Henry, a man who had always valued his independence, felt trapped. He had wanted companionship, not supervision. Despite her intelligence and apparent warmth, the relationship could not flourish under such constraints, and Henry had to let her go, understanding that some control freaks, however well-intentioned, were incompatible with a peaceful life. Finally, Henry met someone entirely different, Julia. She was vibrant, humorous, and free-spirited, but there was a catch. Julia acted much younger than her age. She avoided responsibilities, resisted serious commitment, and seemed more interested in nightlife, social events, and spontaneous adventures than in developing a grounded relationship. At first, Henry enjoyed her energy and lightheartedness, feeling youthful alongside her. But soon, the differences became apparent. She wanted him to accompany her to late-night parties, to join her on impulsive trips, and to adjust his routine entirely to match her whims. The mismatch in maturity and lifestyle began to wear on him. Henry wanted companionship rooted in mutual respect and shared goals, not constant adaptation to someone else's carefree world. After these experiences, Henry reflected on the lessons he had learned. Dating after 70 was not about rushing into companionship, it was about discernment. It was about finding someone whose presence brought peace, joy, and comfort rather than stress and worry. He realized that avoiding the gold diggers, drama queens, control freaks, and immature partners was crucial, not out of cynicism, but to protect his emotional well-being. Henry decided that patience, observation, and self-respect would guide his future choices. The path to a happy, peaceful love life after 70 wasn't about avoiding love, it was about choosing it wisely. After his encounters with Gloria, Lillian, Beatrice, and Julia, Henry became more cautious but also more hopeful. He wasn't ready to give up on love entirely, he simply wanted to navigate this stage of life with wisdom. He realized that dating after 70 required patience, discernment, and a strong sense of self. He began to notice patterns more clearly, understanding the subtle signs that could indicate a woman's true intentions. One afternoon, while attending a local art exhibition, Henry met Eleanor. She was in her late 60s, graceful, with a gentle warmth in her eyes. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on everything from impressionist painters to the joys of gardening. Henry felt a sense of ease he hadn't experienced in months. Eleanor wasn't asking about his finances or possessions, she was genuinely interested in his thoughts, his experiences, and his passions. For the first time, he felt the possibility of a connection that was balanced and sincere. Yet, even in this budding friendship, Henry remained vigilant. He reflected on his past encounters, remembering Gloria's subtle obsession with wealth, Lillian's constant emotional storms, Beatrice's controlling tendencies, and Julia's refusal to embrace responsibility. He had learned that charm alone was not enough. He needed to look deeper, to assess character and compatibility. With Eleanor, he noticed patience, respect, and a willingness to meet him halfway. She listened attentively, laughed easily, and expressed opinions without imposing them. It was a stark contrast to the previous women he had met. As their friendship grew, Henry began to open up about his past, including the loss of his wife and the quiet loneliness that had led him back into dating. Eleanor shared her own stories, speaking candidly about her widowhood and the lessons she had learned from her earlier relationships. Henry felt a profound sense of empathy and understanding between them. For the first time, he wasn't trying to protect himself from harm or disappointment, he was simply enjoying the companionship of someone who truly resonated with him. Despite this positive experience, old habits lingered. Henry found himself analyzing every interaction, looking for hidden motives or warning signs. One evening, while having tea at Eleanor's home, he noticed her reaction when a delivery person accidentally dropped a package outside. She immediately apologized, helped retrieve it, and smiled warmly, not a trace of impatience or irritation. Henry realized that such small gestures spoke volumes about a person's character, something he had overlooked in his earlier encounters. In contrast, Gloria would have been calculating, Lillian would have overreacted, Beatrice would have criticized the delivery, and Julia would have shrugged it off without care. Eleanor's genuine kindness and composure reassured him. However, Henry's journey wasn't just about finding the right person, it was also about understanding himself. He began reflecting on what he truly wanted in a relationship at this stage of life. Peace, respect, companionship, and shared joy emerged as his priorities. He didn't need drama, control, or superficial excitement. He needed someone who could walk beside him, share laughter and quiet moments, and appreciate the wisdom and experiences that came with age. Eleanor seemed to embody these qualities, and Henry allowed himself to be cautiously optimistic. Over the next few weeks, they continued to meet regularly, sometimes for walks in the park, other times for quiet dinners. Henry noticed how Eleanor's presence brought a calmness he hadn't realized he had been missing. She asked thoughtful questions, remembered small details about their previous conversations, and offered insights without being overbearing. It was a delicate balance, one that Henry had never experienced with the other women. He felt a sense of equality, of mutual respect, that reassured him that he was making a wise choice. Even with this newfound hope, Henry remained mindful. He understood that the mistakes of the past could serve as valuable lessons. Gloria had taught him to be wary of women who prioritized material gain over genuine connection. Lillian had shown him the emotional toll of constant drama. Beatrice had reminded him of the importance of independence, and Julia had highlighted the challenges of mismatched maturity and life goals. Eleanor, he realized, was the antithesis of all these challenges. She was grounded, sincere, and capable of nurturing a relationship that could thrive on respect and shared values. By the end of this chapter in his life, Henry felt a renewed sense of confidence. He understood that dating after 70 wasn't about avoiding loneliness at all costs. It was about choosing wisely, valuing oneself, and seeking harmony. With Eleanor, he glimpsed the possibility of a relationship that brought joy without complication, love without manipulation, and companionship without compromise. For Henry, these qualities were priceless, and he was determined to protect and cherish them.